Okay, we are now recording. Welcome everybody to the June 23rd MicroProfile live Hangout. A link to the meeting minutes is in the notes. Please click on the link and add your name to the list of meeting contributors. The organization you're with is optional. And it is everyone's shared responsibility to take notes. So please help out with that. And the chat will also be saved. So in addition to the meeting. Okay, so, and I don't know if someone's trying to talk or if I'm getting feedback.
No, you're good.
Okay, yeah, it sounded like I was getting feedback. Okay, so I did post after the last meeting, a note about doing a release on August 5th, with component specs being due on the 29th of July. And I did add those to the MicroProfile calendar as an FYI. So just a reminder about that. And actually, sorry, I just meant to go back to the notes. And let's see here. Are there any comments or questions about the 4.0 release?
Yeah, John, I kind of had a question about whether or not, I guess whether or not it should be called a release candidate release or a milestone release, because I thought that some of the projects weren't quite ready yet, and so then they were hesitant about being included. So I was thinking that a milestone release might be, I don't know, an easier goal for them to reach, but I just bringing that up as a topic.
Kevin, I have a follow-up question because we have not gotten any feedback directly publicly in the forum. Do you know why?
Are you going to talk about milestone, or you're just going to talk about the work?
No, do you know why we are not getting this feedback in the forum? Asking like, how about we change it, or they are going to you because you are one of the leads on the project. Do you ask why they don't publicly contribute to the conversation?
Oh, that part I do not know. Now, from my personal perspective, because of other work activities, I didn't even know that you posted this. So that's why I didn't post anything publicly about a milestone versus a release candidate. And so I just brought it up now because I see that as the topic being discussed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'll let you go first. Amelia, I saw you go off mute.
Sorry,
I saw you go off mute.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk? Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, for Amelia's question, I think is because it's no kind of feedback and etc. I think is understandable, and we want to push release out, and then it's kind of people trying to do a releases. I think that's kind of good thing to do. So I don't think people will say, why do you want to do a release and etc. And the other things for the release candidates, I think for this depends. If all the specs they have a kind of RC1 and they are confident with their RC. If all the spec has RC, I don't think MicroProfile 4.0 as an M1 instead of RC. So I think if it's some spec has an M1, yeah, MicroProfile 4.0 should have an M1. That's actually, that's what I'm thinking. I'm done, David. Thank you.
My preference when we brought this up was actually to call it M1, just because I know that there are some specifications like open telemetry, that are still trying to figure some stuff out, right? And so if we have a milestone, it might be a little bit easier for them to have some feedback and some to use this time in the most effective way possible.
David, open telemetry is not part of this release. The project not even started.
Well,
I totally understand, but if we do a couple milestones, let's say we did 2 milestones and they're 3 months apart. You know, just worst case scenario. We do 2 milestones. That's a lot of time that they could be using to be getting feedback. They're not necessarily in the formal release milestone 1, but maybe they're there for the final because we've spent the next several months getting some feedback.
As far as I know, the open tracing, they prepare just to do the open tracing Jakarta E rebase. The open telemetry is not even started. That's my take.
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
Yeah, I'm just yep. I mean that's the status right now, but we don't know what our status is going to be 6 months in the future.
yeah, part of the problem is that unfortunately we don't have an end date in place for when MicroProfile is going to be able to do releases again. And so I think, David, I think that's what you're kind of getting at is we don't know how long we're going to have to live with these milestones. So it could be that by the time that we actually can release, we do have an answer for open telemetry or maybe some other aspect of one of the other projects, one of the other components. So,
right. Well,
all right. So I think I was just going to say, it sounds like there's a consensus here for.
I don't know if there is a consensus, but I'll just simply say that because we don't know the time period, right? If we start framing things up as RCs, it sort of implies that we're not going to be learning too much and making too many changes over the next several months.
right.
Whereas if we have milestone, it implies that we can learn and make changes over the next several months. So
That's the way I was looking at it as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Personally, I would prefer us to position ourselves that we can make changes over the next several months.
All right, so what I can do here, sorry, I'm gonna go back to and look at my title. I think what I'm going to do is reply to a message here, basically talk about, point back to the meeting minutes and say that, the general consensus seems to be a milestone 1.
Well, I think Emily wanted to say a couple things, just maybe you can get better. She's got the video. She went off mute and took a breath in to talk.
Sorry, I was
didn't get to say anything.
I might have missed it. I thought Emily was in favor of milestone 1. Sorry.
Yeah, so it's basically I want to say something is like how long do we prepare to wait? Do we wait for this release for 1 year, 6 months, and etc. So this is the whole thing is a kind of, I think it's better to post on the mailing list to ask other specs to also comment instead of saying actually we made a decision we are going to to do this. Maybe it's some other spec is saying okay we would do a milestone release instead of RC and etc.
Also,
sorry.
No, go ahead.
And also, I kind of personally, I think this year we should have a release. I don't expect this kind of release hold up for till next year. So if we say, okay, we don't even know when we are going to release, we don't even know whether we can release. This is really, I think that's a really worrying thing.
Well, where I'm coming from is that when the working group decision or solution, I guess, is found, I want to be able to execute fairly quickly. So I prefer not to be in a milestone a working milestone state now. If things seem like they're coming to a conclusion, so that's, you know, I'm okay with a milestone release, just as long as we think we can in relatively short order switch over to, you know, a candidate release, because technically we should have been working on a lot of this for June release.
Yep.
Right. So that's kind of where I'm coming from, I guess. I just want to be able to execute fairly quickly when we do have a decision or solution.
What if we align the master release with the working group release? And as soon as we have that date set, then define the release candidate release date shortly after.
Exactly, Edwin. That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, it could be, really, it could be the next day. I mean, even if we go through with this milestone 1 and then we get the green light for the releases, okay, let's start spending the RC releases.
So then there is a consensus that we, as a group, even though in the forum we have not had enough traction, and a few of us missed that email from from 2 weeks ago, that we will start with a milestone because of what David explained, and then convert really quickly to RCs. Is that what we are agreeing to?
That works for me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like when the working group comes together, it'll be a complete surprise.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see it coming together.
Yes. The thing is that we need to be very. Mm-hmm. We need to be very clear, because the blog that we have written with the help of Roberto, who is in this call, needs to be updated to whatever we decide on this call and in the forum. And for that, it needs to match whatever is said in that thread, right? Because there is a section in there in the blog. I wonder if we can open the blog. I do not know if I added the link here, but there is a section in the blog that says, this is, those of you working on any of the extensions or APIs, this is the deadlines. And that is the section that will need to be updated with this. Because the blog goes weekly, pushed via the media. So it's pretty cool and simple to communicate. But currently is, and it can be adjusted as easily if we change dates.
With this, we have a plan that kind of is flexible, but also a plan that is good to have, right? So.
Yes.
Yeah.
Also, a couple of meetings ago, we were discussing the status about a 4.1 release, which is going to October. So most likely that's not going to happen. And we did discuss the possibility of merging the releases between 4.0 and 4.1. Shouldn't we also come to an agreement or some kind of consensus on what's going to happen for 4.1, or at least the October release?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's pretty clear what's going to happen, but we need to convey a message about that as well, I believe.
Roberto, you are awesome, because that was brought up in the thread and no one picked it. So you have picked it up in a good call. So what do we think about 4.10 and 4.1?
I think the pragmatic reality is that there's only going to be one release, not two. So
in 2022, right?
2020. Well, there's going to be, hopefully there's two releases, right? The February release that we've already released and one upcoming release, right? That's the hope. And then we have, you know, potentially then the February release. It's just going to depend on when we can deliver MicroProfile 4.0. So the let me rephrase that. The February release I was mentioning is 2021. So I'm hoping we deliver something in the fall still, and then a 2021 February release. But we'll see. What we don't know is how long it's going to, you know, going through the working group, sorry, the Eclipse Foundation spec process, right? That's going to be a learning experience. It's probably going to push things out a little bit. So, sorry, Emily?
So I think is try to echo what you said. I think once the work group is sorted out, I think we should do one release is not 4.0 and 4.1. If the spec deliver more stuff, yeah, it's again, it's all go to 4.0.
Yeah, whatever we were thinking to do for 4.1, let's make sure it's ready to go so it can get in the 4.0 box.
Yes. My bigger concern is, I think it's very important that we can do a 4.0 this year. That's kind of something we should aim for.
Yeah, I mean, the pragmatic reality of that is part of the working group concept is budget, and getting budget during a global pandemic is getting budget midway through the year when budgets are already closed is already difficult, right? So if this was any year, it would still be hard. And then getting budget during the middle of the year during a global pandemic is even harder. So, you know, we should prepare for whatever happens.
We're not talking about the working group yet, but we should definitely discuss in detail the blockage on that section. Once again,
trying to be well, probably not the right term, but I was going to say pragmatic. And I'm sure that I know the answer about this, but I think I have to ask the question anyway. What will be the chance for us to do the release without the working group anyway? Taking consideration with all these about all these well, restrictions, right?
We're not allowed to do a final release.
We are not allowed.
Working group.
Well, we did with until 3.0, right, or 3.x.
We are no longer allowed to do any more releases until there's a working group.
The MicroProfile project is a complete halt, and this is an order that comes from the foundation.
Yes,
let's not try to beat people up over it, but that's the status.
Sure, but what I'm saying is that like this pandemic caused exceptions everywhere, right? So maybe that this could bring up, because this also is hurting the project anyway, right? So it does. Yes, we cannot release, but this also hurting the project.
It's certainly discussion we can have again.
And my point is not that we don't want to have the working group, right? It's just that, as you say, we're in a global pandemic, so things are not like they used to be, right? So people need to be flexible.
Yeah, I think that's a good call, Roberto. I think is kind of we need to revisit about this exception, and even saying, okay, let's revisit next year. If this pandemic continues next year and the financial situation, finance situation won't change. So again, we're really in a really kind of similar situation again. So this is a kind of put this
approach. Sure, it's kind of like I will call this your how do they call it, your jailbreak card or something like that. You can use it like one time. That like every government are doing for the pandemic. But yeah, after a while, then it's not going to be the pandemic anymore, so you cannot use that as an excuse, right? So, but I'm not sure what the rest of the people think, but honestly, that seems to be hurting the project more than doing a benefit from it, even though I understand why the working group it's required. But we are in an exceptional situation here. So actually everyone is, right? So exceptional situation requires exceptional flexibility and rules. So maybe this can be talked out and try to find an agreement and say, hey, we're trying to do this. We're working on the working group. Everything is pretty much done here with the proposal. We're in the process of grabbing the members. But we need to move forward, and it's not going to happen in this situation. So maybe we can find here an arrangement where you can do the release anyway, and then handle the working group later. Just an idea.
Mm-hmm. Well, Roberto, we already asked for that a few weeks ago, and the answer was no. And I think we need to go back once again and not only say we need an exception on this, but also say 5 members is maybe too high because no one can commit at the moment. And if we have 3, we start with that, because coming out of what is it called, incubation, when the charter is being created, needs 5. And I don't think we're going to secure it during the pandemic, because everyone has been required to not only put the budget for 220, but also agree, to be a part of this formally. And no one can do that at the moment. So Kevin and John, the 2 of you have been tasked to work with Paul White and have been communicating with him. Is this something that you see a problem with based on your past conversations that you have brought to this call, or what are we missing here?
Can't hear
John,
you.
you're mute. You're mute, John.
He just explained it all. Too bad.
Yeah,
you
you guys
missed
didn't
it.
catch it. I got to do it all over again.
I heard
Do
it.
it again.
So yeah, we're actually communicating with Paul Buck, who's our executive representative, as we put together this working group. So I think from the Eclipse Foundation's perspective, there's always been a risk since the IP gap was identified. Having projects release specs was a risk. And we've been releasing at a pace faster than I think the progress has been made on creating a working group. So I think from their perspective, let's the risk is beginning to outweigh the progress. So let's pause while we work on this, right? This is all lawyer speak in a lot of ways, right? It's always a balance of risk, and I think that they think at this point, let's put a pause on it. Let's make sure that everyone involved is legally protected for future releases. So I understand that, and so that's kind of I think where we are. So it's more than just budget, really. That's absolutely a part of it. Don't get me wrong, but it's also just trying to protect everybody involved legally. And I'm not a lawyer.
So the other thing is kind of on top of what Roberto and Amelia said. What about the kind of budget? Is under these kind of circumstances, can the budget be waived, or can we negotiate that so that we can move forward with these worker groups conversation, etc.?
So I think there's two aspects that we have to work on, right? So one is the budget, right? And we definitely have to, when forming a working group, there's always legal costs, right? And so those legal costs have to be covered, and that money has to come from somewhere, right? So that has to be accounted for. The other aspect is we still need 2 additional working group members, right? And we continue to have conversations to recruit members. So I prefer we just kind of leave it at that in that regard. So that's where we're at.
I have a question about this. For the budget, we wrote in the charter that is currently a draft V03 that has not been changed for 2 months now. That
you haven't looked.
Oh, I haven't looked because I usually get notifications, but I haven't seen it change. Anyway, we said in the budget that every member that will come in will pay a legal costs budget, but then it will not be a yearly budget. What is the status of what we wished we could maintain on this sense? Because we didn't say back when we were creating the charter and all those conversations that went through this community call, that we didn't want MicroProfile to be a pay-to-play project that sets a bad precedence for open source, attracting new members. I have continued to be asked this every 2 weeks, and my answer is that continues to be the truth. Am I lying here or what's going on? Because we have not updated on that sense, because we have not moved or adjusted the charter.
We have, and there's been recordings where you've asked that question and got told that probably what will be is still some annual budget. And so that is what's currently there. The budget that's framed up is based upon the ASCII Doctor working group proposal. Although they have expressed some difficulty getting paying members as well. So, you know, they're working through that in their own way. But this layout is basically identical to the proposed ASCII Doctor working group budget and identical to Oasis's base pricing model for their specification initiatives.
So we have this chart here is super important, and I do not know how many of you in this call have missed it or what kind of questions.
That was updated today, so
Yeah, this morning.
to make sure that we could get it here to discuss during the call.
Right.
Yes. So this is my question to myself. If we get 20 annual corporate members, 20, and that goes yearly, and that means in the future, and nothing goes to, how is this money going to go all to the Eclipse Foundation budget?
Well,
or
if we magically had 20, then we could probably adjust this so the prices aren't so high.
Yeah.
You know, we don't have, MicroProfile's spirit has always been that the contributions come not in the form of cash, but in the form of time.
Yes.
And resources, right? It's an open source project in that regard. So if we magically had 20 people lined up, then this would be significantly lower.
Okay, so then that means that should the charter get signed and in 2 years, we get 10, 20, whatever, you know, increasement memberships, we as MicroProfile can immediately drop the annual fees to a level that is much more welcoming, and we will not, we expect not to be stopped by anyone to do so. Is that what we are assuming? Have we asked the Eclipse Foundation?
Well, no, we don't have to ask the Eclipse Foundation necessarily. What it would be is the working group would have to have a vote, right? And so the members, the existing members of the working group would have to vote to adjust the fees, right? So we could, you know, we could, we could make the proposal, have a vote that might take, I don't know, whatever it takes, a month or 2 months or a quarter, right? Whatever the time frame is. And so we just want to schedule it before fees are renewed, right? So, yep.
This is a really good conversation. How is everyone? Other questions that do not come from me. Come on, MicroProfilers. You can do this.
I was wondering whether like Jakarta EE has a lot members. I know it's kind of even has it has members from all across the world. Can we spread? I don't know whether you have or already kind of open the invitation to all the Jakarta EE community, the Jakarta EE members, to see whether they want to kind of join in the MicroProfile.
Yes, we have started that already, Emily, and talking with the teams, various, you know, degrees. I mean, there are some people on the Jakarta working group that all along they have wanted a combined working group. So they're not necessarily interested in having a separate group. And then there is still the concern with the fees, because then they're looking at this and saying, okay, now I would have another fee that I would have to pay because there's two separate working groups. So yes, we are approaching them and talking with them, but we haven't gotten any of them to sign up yet.
Mm-hmm. And there is also, Kevin, this is a really good point. And there is also a concern that was actually stated in this call a few times by a few members of the Jakarta group. They do not want the two projects combined. They want that freedom to be able to leave one project and come to the other one, or stay in both projects and have this independence. This has been stated by Fujitsu Global very openly in this call, and by a few members that are still watching both Jakarta and MicroProfile and waiting for this to be done so they can decide if they join both or just one, and which environment is more friendly and easily adaptable. This is the feedback I am getting, and I have been getting since January when we started the working group calls.
I just want to be clear that it's not one versus the other, right? So obviously everybody here participates in both projects. It's really, from my perspective, you know, I want a menu that I can order the things that I want off of, and not one big buffet dollar price with a bunch with potentially some stuff there that I don't really want, don't want to be paying for. And so, you know, we've discussed that on this call, and we don't necessarily need to go over it again. But you know, part of MicroProfile's flair is its very bootstrapped, low cost, low overhead nature. That's an important part of the innovation here. So
Will that change with the coming of the working group then?
Well, we've been trying to make sure that as little change as possible, and that is definitely, you know, part of the focus. You know, so hence the voting, right? Hence that all the community gets to vote still. That's to try and honor the way we do things now.
Yes, and you know, John, when you said the charter will be adjusted, so we need to adjust the fees at a later time to include the infra and legal. This is a vote that will go to the entire community, or is this a corporate vote?
This is how we've outlined it in the charter, which is a combination of corporate members, and the way we've currently defined committer membership is every committer has a vote that rolls up into a single vote, depending on the outcome.
Yeah,
so everybody does get a vote.
Yes, that is a good reminder, because we continue to talk about this, and I think every independent committer and contributor should earn the vote. It matters, you know, to be active and say, hey, this should be a little bit cheaper, or you have a say. It's not only corporations. And that is the beauty of MicroProfile thus far, that we have protected with the standalone charter.
Okay, so that's kind of, let's see, are there any notes that we should have taken out of that conversation?
I will help with the notes.
Right. So do we have a plan B? Are we in a deadlock situation? If we say, okay, we cannot get a 5 member, and then Eclipse Foundation, you need to have five members. And then we just deadlock here, and no, I mean, we couldn't move along at all. Is there a plan B?
We haven't talked about plan B, Emily, but if that doesn't happen and we are not able to keep up what we like of MicroProfile, I see a few options here. I don't want to even mention them, because I think that would be a total lack of.
I think let's not go there. Let's just say that we've only got we've only gotten the pricing public today, and personally, I think I think having it not be public has been a limiting factor, but that's
But
me
who chose
personally.
that? But who chose that?
We were just doing due diligence to try to make sure that it was something that everyone could agree on, right? And so it is there now, and I think that that's good, right? So that is a form of progress, and so we should try to move forward with that
Hmm.
and see what we can do.
So then when I'm going to write in the minutes, I'm going to copy paste on the level 1 on the working group, the budgets. And I think it's a good idea for us to send it off to the forum. The forum has close to 1,200 microprofilers or interested microprofilers. And the data, you know, we can even push it via media and be very aggressive on this new information that we finally are able to put to everyone. Because one of the concerns that I had with the budget is that I didn't understand why we wouldn't be having the open conversation, not with anyone interested, but with the actual pricing. Anything that needs to be done over closed doors, just to see if there is interest, seems dangerous to me, but that is just my bias. So I have been very patient on actually waiting for the budget to be disclosed. That is on my side.
So is the budget now is fixed? Basically, this is a definite budget agreed with the Eclipse Foundation.
Well, you don't know the budget until you know the members that have joined.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, but you know,
This is what we're starting with. That's the
Yeah. Well, these are the fees, right? So it depends how many in which level join. That'll define the budget that we can work against.
And you know,
That sounds a little bit confusing because, as David said a while ago, MicroProfile has been operating on mostly resources as time and effort from everyone that's here, right? So these fees, in my eyes, they'll be able to pay for legal stuff on the Eclipse Foundation. So that should be easy to quantify how much is required, right?
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, but
my question over there, and wondering if that might be a limiting factor, or that might be a restriction, or even a way to make this a little bit easier, is if we could just figure out how much budget does the Eclipse Foundation requires on the legal side of things, and just pay them as a fee as a first entry. And then the budget can be adjusted based on the pandemic and everything else.
yeah, so Edwin, go ahead.
Yeah, I was maybe checking. So we will lower the bar to set the working group as much as possible then. So you have the least effort and bar of entry and pick it up from there.
Well, I'll say this much: if we revisit these fees, we're going to be restarting a lot over again, and it's going to push the release out.
Yeah, you know, Edwin and Roberto, one of the things is that we already said the original idea was to just pay for the onboarding fee for legal and then stop, because any budget, we want to control it. There will be no marketing hires. There will be nothing, like we can control the infra and we can help pay for the infra and all these things. So when we discuss this budget, one of the main questions that we get is, who is going to be hired by this? And we said there is zero overhead in human hired. So that is one thing that keeps those interested at bay and thinking, okay, this is cool. But we, the world, can not even have the budget to say, hey, I can commit this year. So either we keep up this and adjust it when we secure more members at a later time. We start with 3 partners instead of 5 and move on. Because if this is a started fee and we have agreed today that we as a community can vote to lower them to whichever amount we want. One of the things that worries me is that I see annual fees, but then what about if the money goes just to the Eclipse Foundation? What about what we need to spend on the marketing side that is controlled fully by the community? So I don't see a distinction here. And there is a problem that we have with the annual fees. If the annual fees go only to survive and be under the Eclipse Foundation, why is that? And can we support it?
Well, what I would recommend is, we could start with these fees. The first year we could track our costs, right? And the costs to the Eclipse Foundation and revisit this, right? That's
great.
Until then, I highly recommend we don't change these fees.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I mean, you guys had a huge amount of work to work, and I'm pretty sure that was like a lengthy discussion. I mean, we're seeing this for the first time, so that's why we're asking questions.
These are very good questions.
They're great questions, and the concept of could we just cover the legal costs was absolutely brought up.
Yeah. That's how we
started.
I mean,
I'm sorry, right? Because we were not present on those. So
no.
I don't understand.
I said before, you don't have to apologize, because before I spoke that sentence, I said these are great questions, and So I think it's a credit to you for bringing it up, right? So that's really sharp.
Yeah,
it definitely came up.
Yeah, and it was one of the first things when we started discussing the annual fees, because we didn't want annual. We wanted just to cover, but we do not know the cost. Maybe a big corporation wants a lot of red lines. That can go to 20, 25,000. Another one will be a small, maybe 1,000.
So, that's the complicating factor, is you don't know what size of the check you're writing. So
yeah, so we need to be fluid. And what I like about this call today is that not only do we have the group fees of what has been, fought for, and the word fought, trust me on this, fought for, but also we understand that we can change it. When we share this data in the forum, we should say these fees will lower as, and will be adjusted as we know the amount of money that legal will use. Because seriously, every single time that is done, MicroProfile has done something in the marketing side, we connect, and those volunteers decide not only to volunteer their times, but also budgets. And then we print 300 t-shirts, 500 t-shirts, you name it. And usually the booths are free and all this stuff. So it's very fluid. So this is the first time that we will be like, we have a budget. What do we do with this budget? Do we just cover the speakers? So it's all these fun things. I trust the budget to be awesome. And everyone here knows that I'm really tough with budget. So that should say something.
Okay. This is, I don't know if we have other topics. I'm just trying to be sensitive of time. We got about 13 minutes left. So we kind of already went into the working group discussion. Looks like Emily and I'm guessing Amelia.
Emily, you have to put that down, your section under marketing. This is for Emily. Emily said work on Ryan to improve MicroProfile.io. That is under marketing.
Yeah, I'll do it.
So if you want to know anything about marketing, please go into the minutes. As always, there is the minutes, the tracing, even the video is out in Twitter for those that want to listen to whatever went down 30 minutes ago. So I don't have anything. What?
Compelling. It's compelling stuff.
Any questions? Before I think we can end early if there are no questions.
Well, not questions about this, but I do have a few proposals for the group. So one is regarding the, since we're going to have, I almost say, this is probably not the right term, time, because no one has time, right? But since we're not going to be able to do releases, then we could probably invest some time in other stuff that we're lacking. So one, John, this is coming from a conversation that we had a couple of weeks ago. I don't know if you remember, where it was mostly about consistency across all the projects.
Yes.
So right now, I mean, we are part of the same group, and we're part of the same organization, and they're part of the same platform. But then when you look into the projects, they just seem that they are randomly. I mean, of course, each project has its own team, and each project has different members working on that. But then it doesn't. It feels that the projects are not consistent across each other. Sure, the structure is pretty much similar, but then you see things like projects using different labels for things. Even if the structure of the project is similar, has some slight differences. Some people have like Gitters, some don't. Some projects have dedicated main lists, some don't. I mean, I think there is some consistency work that we should work on to bring this consistency across all the MicroProfile projects, and remove the feeling when, at least that's the feeling that I have. I'm not sure if everyone else has it. Maybe, so if everyone else has it, please let me know. But when I move to some other MicroProfile project, it seems that I'm going to a different project sometimes.
So
well, I like to comment on that. I can agree that sometimes it is a good thing that you have consistency and that it's more or less the same. But on the other hand, are those projects individual, and do we have just an umbrella which groups them, but are not directing or forcing some of those projects to do something? Or do we have indeed one single per project and sub per projects with all those specifications then? So that's the difference between the two, I think. And to be honest, I'm not sure which way we are working today.
I think that's the issue, because everyone works the way that they want, right? There is really no, and I'm saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying there is no, it doesn't seem to be like a defined way to work, right? So each project ends up doing as they see they would like to do, right?
Yeah, but then we need to define MicroProfile as one project and not as a group of different specifications where there is an umbrella.
I think that there should be some minimum consistency defined across projects, right? For instance, it's quite annoying when I'm searching for issues on each project, that everyone has different labels, and even have some projects even have their own templates to define the issues, right? So especially because when we release as a platform, right? And when you're reporting a bug, sometimes you know where that bug impacts, but sometimes it's a platform bug and you don't really know what it is. So we have to search across multiple repositories, multiple projects, and then it's quite a pain that things are not consistent that way, right?
So I have a question for you, Roberto. Via the thread, you brought the idea of mailing lists using the Google forum as an example. And we never had a follow-up on that thread to say how many mailing lists have been created, have they been created? And
we created one for config.
Yes, I understand that, but how is config measuring up, and how long has it been? How many members does it have, and what is the activity? Can you help us on that, or Emily or someone that is actively working on that? What's going on? Because
it has a few members, mostly the people that are more contributing in the last couple of weeks for config, which are probably just like half a dozen people, maybe a few more signed up for to watch, but I'm not the group leader, so I don't know the exact details. Regarding traffic, I mean, some lengthy discussions had been posted over there, so we had like maybe like 3 or 4 threads discussing stuff. But for me, I think it was better because I can focus more on a particular topic than just having to search on the entire list. But I mean, that's just a matter of preference, right? So I know that I was the one that I suggested to have a separate mailing list per project, but I think we either do it or we just stick with the general one. but I don't like the idea of having a few projects have their own mailing list, and then other projects, they don't have anything, and they'll just discuss it because it's not consistent, right? So then you don't know how to explain to someone, oh, if you're going to MicroProfile config, now you have this, and that. But if you're going to MicroProfile metrics, now it works in a different way, if you know what I mean.
So,
Well,
just in the interest of time, I apologize. We got like maybe 5 minutes left. These topics have been brought up before, and I've got an example here where I brought up the label issue. It's been brought up, roughly a year ago, right? Common labeling across specs. We have various discussions on these, but there really is no kind of consistent discussion. I think it would be really good to have some kind of consistent discussion, and maybe the right place to have this is, I don't know if it's the architecture meeting or not.
I was going to say that.
And the reason why I'm bringing that up is I don't think we're going to have a working group call next week. Would it be good to have an architecture call next week? Because that's when we used to normally have the architecture calls.
Yes. We haven't had it in the entire 6 months. The last one was December, and I do miss it. Ken, who is the host, keeping us sane to those attending, has done a really good job throwing the minutes and updating the threads, just like John and Kevin have done. But I feel, as Roberto, there has been a lack of growth on the infra and architectural thinking that we achieved in 2019. And as we worked on the working group, I thought that we'll also acquire this. For instance, I want to add that right now, MicroProfile can add a repo where all its active contributors can be added and can start assigning issues to anyone they wish and all this stuff. And that needs to be implemented too and added to this. I mean, all of it is done. This bot, there are so many things to talk. So I will say +1 on my side. I have been joining those calls for a long time, and I do miss them.
But wasn't it the outcome that we didn't do any architecture calls anymore because we should do those things on the mailing list because it was too difficult that to have all those meetings and that everyone should have those meetings? Same for the...
Yeah, I think I think what Rudy said, is my recollection. Basically, is this kind of move to virtual. I will say quickly regarding the communication on the different project. I think from my own experience, the Gator is the older project. I think use Gator. Config does create a mailing list, and I think I will still put it on the trial because I think only me started to sending emails and etc. And then I found Gator is more communicative. So I think for Roberto has good ideas, and I think before we roll it out, we test it out in some specs. If we found that it's really useful and etc. I think this kind of share good practices and etc. I think we should discuss more on the mailing list.
Sorry
to bother you. Let me say something to Rudy. The reason why the calls were stopped, so I understand, is because we were going to enter into the working group discussions, and we wanted that hour to go directly to the working group. At the beginning, we thought that the working group would only use 1 hour a month. We were mistaken. So it has totally overrun everything we did before.
Okay, that was not my understanding, but okay, it could be the case.
Yeah. Well, what I like about having that meeting is it acts as a forcing function for me, just like this meeting does. Like it's like, man, I forgot to add the release dates to the calendar, right? As I kind of prep and write all the notes and stuff and track things, and maybe that's just on me anyway, right? But I do like that it acts as a forcing function. Now, we could agree to meet to expedite communication, but maybe we just don't make decisions there, right?
I'm fine with that.
This one we agreed. We agreed that in the next future calls, the architectural calls, and this one was actually sent to the forum. no decisions will be done on that call. That we will push things forward, but never made a decision in the call. That we agree.
I think it will be useful to do brainstorming on stuff, and then whatever comes out from the meeting, it'll just be shared on the mailing list for other people to discuss. In reality, that's what people usually do on the individual specs, right? With the individual spec meetings. Only a couple of people show up, they have some brainstorming, then they'll share it either on GitHub or Gitter or whatever. I don't see the reason why it shouldn't be done for architecture as well.
So Rudy, does that sound okay?
Yeah, it is okay, but I just thought that we had decided it otherwise in the past. But if everyone agrees now again to do something else, that's fine for me. But as I said, it was not my understanding about the reason why we stopped those architecture calls.
And I think we need to. A ticket was created, and a Git ticket was created because the architectural call goes into a loop, media loop, twice a month, the Thursday and Monday before. But we stopped it because of the working group, and I think we failed to update on that because we were so focused on the working group. So that is on us.
Well, I think we discussed it in one of these hangouts here.
Yes, but we failed to send it to the forum.
Well, so we used to have at this time slot once a month. That was kind of taken over by the working group, and regardless of what we decided in the past, I'd like to try a meeting and see how it goes. I'm hoping, you know, obviously anyone who wants to join can join. I'm hoping this time slot is acceptable. I mean, it's perfect for me, right? Because I'm in the West Coast and everything, right? But, but it may not be for everybody. Yeah, it may not be for everybody, so I understand.
Sorry. Yeah. Can I make a suggestion? Maybe the next week, because this is reserved for worker group, and then someone posts the link to the Google group saying next week instead of talking about work group, and we want to discuss the kind of, this is the kind of architecture or something like that.
We can send like an agenda of what we talked today, like a copy paste, and say architectural call, but no decisions will be made. And I say, let's schedule it for next week, actually, to end June. Nice.
Do we need to doodle?
No.
A different time?
Let's not be complicated.
Before we say no, I just want to make sure that, I mean, like I said, this time is really convenient for me, right? But it may not be for everybody. So I just want to be sensitive to that. So.
Doing a doodle is good. The other thing, I know I am aware of this time, but I really want to also revisit the growing pain conversation. Maybe we could use the kind of release freeze period and look at the growth pain to divide the kind of the releases and etc. Maybe that's something we can also discuss.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And you know, we're kind of over time, so I'll start a doodle poll and write up the entry, the post for the Google group, see how that works out, get feedback. And
John, remember this, on Tuesdays from 8 to 10:30, there is no access for many of the working group because we have Jakarta. So I am saying, create in the doodle pool, if you're going to add at 9 o'clock, you will disregard everyone else that has been really active. So you're saying 11, 12, 1, you're going to make it later. And I'm saying that it's a problem, but I'm happy with the doodle pool if it works, but we cannot have it before 10:30 in the morning. It's okay to start at 10:30. Should that be a need?
Well, that's going to be on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Right. I'm talking any day of the week. So.
Not Mondays or Fridays.
Well, I'm going to stick them all out there, right? And we'll see what happens, right? And there's not going to be one time slot where it lines up perfectly for everyone anyway. So let's try it, see what the results are. And I kind of want to do a quick apology back to Roberto because, when I was talking about the pricing and stuff, you probably sensed some frustration on my part because it's not an easy discussion to have, right?
No. I mean,
And so we went through it, and I probably could have handled that a little bit better.
No. I mean, you don't have to apologize. I mean, I understand that all of you, David, John, and
It's Kat and Kevin.
are frustrated because you're being handling this for so long, right? But yeah, I mean, I also apologize because I don't know what you guys discussed or not, and I probably have
Questions are beautiful.
Well, yeah, that wasn't on you. That was on me. These are good questions.
I think what we're here is we're in a no apology zone because all questions are okay.
Yes.
And it's really fine.
It's great.
Yeah, it is.
And so it's really as long as everyone's okay with each other, then I think it's good.
Yeah.
So,
it's okay. I mean, I believe that everyone's interest over here is of course move the project forward.
Yep.
That's why everyone is here. So I think everyone is trying to make that happen. So and
right, everybody, including the Eclipse Foundation,
Yeah.
And so everybody is trying to make sure that the right thing happens.
All right, so I'm gonna nail this call here as a close. We're 5 after the hour, so thanks everyone for joining. See everyone for sure in 2 weeks, same bad time, same bad channel, maybe somewhere in between as well. So everyone enjoy the rest of the day.
Nice way to close Q2 if we don't have a call on Tuesday next week.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be fantastic.
Q2,
All right.
closing it with one of the most what is it called? Understand, like Q&A, ask me anything. Really love this. Bye, everyone.
All right, thanks everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.